Hello everyone and welcome to Roadmap. So we are continuing with the topic reproduction in plants part 4, and if you like the video don't forget to click on thumbs up button. You can also subscribe and share, and you can also give your suggestions in the comment section. Topics to be covered in this lesson are introduction, reproduction in plants, asexual reproduction, binary. In that sexual reproduction we have already learnt about binary fission, spore formation, fragmentation, vegetative propagation, sexual reproduction, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, pollination, then the types of pollination, and then fertilization, and finally fruit and seed formation. So coming to the introduction part, we have already learned this in our previous video. If you haven't checked with the videos, just go back, look at the video, watch it, get the details so that you will be able to link this chapter in a better way, and you will be able to get concepts in more clarity. I'll just give a glimpse of it, that whatever we have learned, what exactly reproduction is. It is the ability of living beings to give birth to young ones, and this is nothing but reproduction. So in reproduction there are two types of reproduction: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction we have already learnt about binary fission, how it takes place, then what is exactly fragmentation, the filaments give rise to fragments, and then we have already learnt about the budding, how it takes place in yeast cells. Then we have learnt about the vegetative propagation. Now there are some types of vegetative propagation and artificial methods of vegetative propagation. So in natural methods of vegetative propagation we have learned that how it takes place by leaves, by stems, by roots, then how it by tuber, CORM, and all this we have already studied. Then in artificial vegetation propagation we learned about the layering, grafting, cutting, and what is tissue culture, what are the benefits of tissue culture. So already we have learned all this in our previous videos. I would suggest you so that go back and check the video and then come over here. So now we'll start with sexual reproduction. Now we'll learn about sexual reproduction. This is the most common method of reproduction found in most of the plants, and for sexual reproduction to occur, the two important things are that it requires two parents, one male and other female, and in sexual reproduction, a male gamete and a female gamete fuse together to form a zygote. So, the zygote changes over a period of time to form new organisms. In sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds. So we'll learn about sexual reproduction in flowering plants now. Flowers are the reproductive organs of the plant, and the main function of the flower is sexual reproduction. So they achieve this by producing seeds which, on getting favorable conditions, produce new plants. A normal flowers, as we all know, consist of four whorls, namely sepals, petals, androecium and gynoecium. And the androecium is the male reproductive part of the flower. Androecium consists of one or more tube-like stamens, and each stamen consists of a thick-like stalk which is called as filament. A two-lobed head called as anther, and an anther contains pollen grains which produce male gametes. So basically the four whorls of flower you have to remember are sepal, petal, androecium and gynoecium. And what are their features? That androecium is the male reproductive part of the flower, gynoecium is the female reproductive part of the flower. This you have to remember. The pistil or gynoecium is the female reproductive part, and each pistil consists of stigma, style and ovary. The ovary contains one or more ovules, and the female gamete or egg is formed in an ovule. So this is the diagram which shows the four whorls of the flower. From the diagram you will be able to get that there is androecium, gynoecium, sepal and petal. So gynoecium, it is also called as carpels, and it has got carpels, and androecium has got stamens. It has got filament and it has got anther. the pollen grains. It produces pollen grains. It is called as microsporangia. And in gynoecium, it has got stigma, style, and ovules. Ovules are called as megasporangia. So this is very important for you to remember that ovules are called as megasporangia and microsporangia are the androecium ones. So this is all about the male and female reproductive parts of the flower and how the sexual reproduction takes place in flowering plant. Now coming to the unisexual and bisexual flowers, the flowers contain either androecium or gynoecium and these are called as unisexual flowers. The flowers of cucurbita, papaya and mulberry are unisexual flowers and the flowers which contain both androecium and gynoecium are called bisexual flowers. The flowers of mustard, rose and petunia are bisexual flowers. Now coming to the pollination, what exactly pollination is? It is the process by which pollen grains from anther of a flower are transferred to stigma of the same flower or another flower. So there are two types of pollination. First is self-pollination, which is also called as autogamy, and the other one is the cross-pollination. So there are two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. We'll learn about it in more detail. Self-pollination. The self-pollination, it is also called as autogamy and it is a process of transfer of pollen from anther to stigma of the same flower or to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. So this is exactly what self-pollination is. And there are some advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. The advantages of self-pollination is it is a definite method of seed formation and it has got parental characters which are preserved from generation to generation and only a small quantity of pollen is required and wastage is avoided. In self-pollination, flowers need not to be large or attractive and scent and nectar need not to be produced by flowers to attract insects. While the disadvantages of self-pollination are it continued self-pollination may decrease vigor of the future generations of the species and the weak characters of the species are not diminished. And genetic improvement does not take place in self-pollination. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. Now coming to the cross-pollination, what exactly cross-pollination is? It is the process of transfer of pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of a flower of another plant of the same species or sometimes very closely related species. And this in this figure you will be able to this is the agent by when it takes place but I thought that you must know how the cross pollination takes place. So this is how the cross pollination is taking place when pollen from one plant lands on the silk of another plant. So this is how the cross pollination takes place. Now coming to the advantages of cross pollination, the offsprings are more vigorous and the variation is produced continuously and new improved and more adapted varieties can be produced. While the disadvantages of cross pollination are pollination is not definite and is dependent on pollinating agencies such as wind, water, insects, and the pollen has to be produced in very large quantities to ensure pollination as a lot of pollen is destroyed in transit. The process is uneconomical as the flower has to form large petals, nectars, to attract insects for ensuring pollination. So this is what the advantages and disadvantages of cross-pollination are. Now coming to the agencies of cross-pollination, as I already said in the before diagram, we have already seen how the pollination takes place by wind. That when there's a carrier and pollen is carried by the wind. The other pollination agents are insects, and some flowers are pollinated to a limited extent by animals. In some water plants, pollination may be carried out by water. So, pollination may be taken place by insects, wind, water, animals. These are some of the agents of cross-pollination. Now, so from the figure, you will be able to get that first step is pollen from stamen sticks to a bee as it visits a flower to collect food. And then the bee travels to another plant of the same type. Finally, the pollen on the bee sticks to a pistil or the flower of the another plant. So this is what takes place in cross pollination exactly. It is very simple process that from one plant it goes to the other plant via insect. It also takes place by animals, wind or water. This you have to remember. So I hope you like the video and you are watching them and you are liking them, and I would request you to subscribe them. So thank you for watching.